2,000 years ago, a man came upon the earth to offer a demonstration of the future. One who came out of time and space, one who appeared in an obscure country, in an ancient time, in humble origins, and told a story and gave an example, provided himself as a model. The message was misunderstood. The example was denied. The model was ignored as it was intended. It was the planting of a seed of understanding that required a great deal of time to come to maturity. What Jesus the Christ was doing here was saying to each of you, you are me. I am you. What I am, you are. And to realize that true identity, you must forgive and be forgiven. But by whom? By yourself. Letting go of the burden of guilt and sin. You must recognize that love is the only reality, and you must recognize that you are all of God. And demonstrations of that true identity came forth in the form of miracles. Now, the Bible, which has maintained over these thousands of years the necessary kernels of truth and of understanding, is in rather extreme error as to the true message and the true meaning, because the consciousness of those inspired by the Christ was simply not at a point when such a message could be understood in its simplicity, in its reality. Human beings lost in the dark, illuminated for a passing moment by a blinding light, are blinded still further. And after the death of the Christ, and after the resurrection of the Christ, the divisiveness set in. Politics were played. Those aspects of the message of the Christ that were in deep disagreement with the cultural mores of the time were swiftly buried. The message of equality of the sexes as well as of the races was buried, ignored, put aside. Well, he can't really have meant that. What he really meant was... And so a process of distortion came in. It wasn't intentional distortion. It was prideful human beings saying, I know best. I know what he really meant, because obviously he couldn't have meant what he said. The demonstrations of power in the form of miracles have been distorted in the retelling. Not that the miracles, and many more than are referred to in the Bible, did not occur. They did. But it was not the holy man with the halo around his head saying, in effect, look what I can do. And you can't. What is the effect when you see, or if you were to see, a miracle worker cause the lame to walk, and the blind to see, and the dead to rise? Would you, seeing these things, say to yourself, I bet I could do that? No. You would say, here is one of great power, separate from me. You would feel diminished in the presence of such a miracle worker. And that wasn't the message. The message was, see what you can do. What I can do, you can do. If you accept love that transforms, that heals the wounds of darkness. This power comes from the Father of all of us. But no one believed. And no one believes now, except a scattered few, a growing few, soon to be many. But because of this long history of duality, this long exploration of the darkness of fear, of ignorance, of hatred, this long period of separation from God and from yourselves, now when you are ready to awaken to the power of miracles, you don't know what to look for. Your expectations are based on that old model of I am weak, but thou art strong. I am a poor wretch, and you are everything. And you expect miracles to be done for you and to be done to you and to be spectacular in living color and cinemascope. And so you're looking in the wrong direction for the wrong manifestation. Your journey has taken you again and again and again into situations, life after life, where you had it drummed into you, I am unworthy, I am sinful, I am weak, and I'm going to die. I have these fleeting moments to cram full of joy and of pain, and then I will be erased. Oh, maybe I'll tread the streets of gold in heaven and play on the harp, but that's never really been a very attractive proposition for the human being. Doesn't it sound boring? And yet, that was the vision, however vague, of the possibility of afterlife. But how much closer and more immediate and more convincing the apparent reality of death and decay. So you buy what you can see, and you hope for what is invisible to you. And so in that long sojourn, trying desperately to find the light in the midst of darkness, growing bit by bit, all of the proofs that you received indicated that you had very little going for you. But now, things are different. None of you had any idea what you were doing when the moment came for you, when you began to rub your eyes and blink and look around and say, there's more here than meets the eye. I have a soul. I have a path. I have a purpose. Oh, joy. Oh, rapture. And with a glad cry, you begin to explore this transformation. Now, I'm sure most of you, if you'd had any idea what was coming, you would have turned and run the other direction. Because it isn't what you expected. That vision of oneness that animated this part of your journey did not open the door to joy unrestrained, to a life suddenly completely under your control, a life without temper tantrums, without tears. Instead, all unknowing, you opened the door to chaos in your lives. Deep, painful self-questioning, doubt, crisis after crisis, your reality changing under your feet, stumbling blindly forward, impelled by a faith that sometimes seemed a very weak reed. It had to be so. It is why we've said again and again, live in the moment. Don't look ahead. Don't try to see what's coming. Be. Because the moment, now, this instant, you've got total control. And your growth, each of you, has gone on apace. And yet you see through senses conditioned by a limitation, a constant sense of limitation that is in fact no more. It is only the ghostly remnants of your fear-filled selves that deflect you from the sure and certain awareness of your completion, your wholeness, your power, your glory. This is the time of awakening and a time of recognition, a time of letting go of expectations. You don't need expectations when you are filled with faith. However painful the journey may have been, you can now look back and see it was good, that it was a cleansing, a clearing away of the fog before your eyes. It couldn't be what you expected because you didn't know what to expect. The journey for each of you has been a peeling away of layer after layer after layer of illusion. You have protected yourself from reality. You have lived in fear of death and hope of heaven. You have created castles of imagination to protect you from the dark. And now you are letting go of all of those props and all of those illusions, all of the masks that you wore. And what are you finding? You're searching for that shining jewel of your spirit that is going to change your whole life, unaware that you have already found it, because you're looking for something else. The awakening process has reached the point now where you are ready to be aware of your power, of the miracles in your life, not miracles that you are waiting for someone to give you, for the universe to provide, a prayer for God to answer. Ladies and gentlemen, you're on your own. You are grown-ups now. It is no longer little me. It is no longer the poor wretch begging for mercy from the distant, insatiable God, the God of fear, the Father that is never satisfied, never pleased, always demanding more pain, more suffering, more sacrifice. God, the true God, is now as inseparable from you as your thumb and your fingers and your toes, part of you, integrated into you. Not blasphemy, but an awareness of the inseparability of you and of God. God created you, the Bible accurately says, in His own image. Is God a slave? Is God afraid? Is God going to create followers? God can only create Himself. If you were to say to the greatest inventor in the world, invent me a block of wood, what a waste of talent. God creates masterpieces. And the most frightening thing about this passage, this transformation, is the awareness and the acceptance that you are on your own, not because God is dead, but because you are God. And that awareness opens the door for you to take back the power that you have abandoned in life after life after life. To see yourself as you truly are, not weak, not sinful, powerful, loving, compassionate, giving, open, powerful. What does God do? God creates. And within you is the miracle of creation. To be free at last to create a reality that exalts you and your life. The proof of the pudding, it said, is in the eating. This life, you are going to be proving to yourself the reality of your strength and of your power and of your love. You are going to recreate your reality. You are going to recreate your relationships. You are going to recreate the use of your energy. You will never be dictated to. You will never be successfully lied to. You are awakening to the miracle that is you. And you say, but that's all very well, but I am extremely confused about what's going on in my life and where it is going. I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. I feel without anchor, without a rudder. Well, that's the point, you know. You don't need an anchor. You don't need a rudder. You don't need someone to say, go and do this now. All you need to do is take your power and act. This has been a journey that has required a great deal in the way of patience. The development of patience. You don't know what's going on. You don't know how fast it's going to go or how slow it's going to go. And it always goes slower than you think it should. And first you are impatient and irritable. And finally, you recognize that all things come to you in their time. And you have learned to be open and receptive. Perfectly? Well, not perfectly the way you visualize perfectly, but well enough. You are becoming, and you don't even notice it. The patience that you have shown was necessary while you were being guided by your higher self along a path that you had not seen before, to destinations you knew not of, developing faith, trust, and willingness. A necessary step in your development. But now, there is no more need. You are whole. You are whole. Now, the process is completed. You're as whole now as you ever will be. And now you are going to be proving it to yourself by taking the steps in your life that prove to you that it is you who is the miracle worker. Barricades will fall before you. Accept and trust your wisdom. And reach beyond all that you have ever experienced, all that you have ever believed. Be bold in your life. There's an expression, the future is now. Well, that's it. You're not waiting around anymore. You are adults now. At the time of the Christ, when the promises were made and the example was shown, these were just toddlers. And now you've gone through your adolescence as a human spirit. And now you have received your wholeness. And now you are going to spend the rest of this incarnation proving your wholeness to yourself in your life by constant expansion. By intuiting your next move. And then acting. That's what the mind is for, the ego self is for. The thinking that it does has been very, very, very inadequate. It was, in a sense, starved for oxygen. Starved for the wisdom of the Spirit. Your mind, your ego self, is going to be much more efficient and much more skillful, much more far-seeing, as you have opened the Spirit to join it. And now you can activate your will, living in a way that may seem reckless to you. Well, shouldn't I be sure before I quit this job? Shouldn't I be absolutely sure before I change this situation in my life? Isn't that wisdom? Caution. Well, caution is sometimes wise when you're crossing a crowded street, for example. Safety has its points. But in the conduct of your life, caution is fear. Your faith is no longer blind. You can boldly act on faith, act on an intuition that seems but a momentary glimmer, just as boldly as though you had seen the future in every bit of its detail. You can trust yourself that far. Because you see, you're not alone. You're not this poor little orphaned ego self wandering around helpless in the world anymore. If you picture the wider reality as a giant wheel, and each life a spoke coming from the center of that wheel, you have gone into the place of recognition that you are a part of that wheel. You are not isolated. You are not alone. You are connected. Your judgments, the decisions that you make in your life, are fully empowered. You cannot look at yourself anymore as being isolated, alone, alienated, afraid. You are the creator of your reality. It can be as big as you want it to be. Does that mean that you can make a choice and you say, well, it's wonderful, I'm going to be a multimillionaire? Probably not. Sorry. Because what is paramount here in your life, in your heart, is your purpose, your reason for being here on earth in human form. And therefore, the guidance of the heart, the intuition of the soul, will speak to that purpose. And you will always and infallibly know when you are acting in concert with your purpose. And very, very soon you will be unable to act otherwise, because it will be so clear to you the rightness of an action, of a choice, of a decision. No guesswork. A sure and certain knowledge beyond question. And the more exercise you give yourself in terms of acting on your intuition, taking bold action, the clearer, the quicker things will become. It's hard at first. And you think of your security, financial security, emotional security, and there's a great deal of security involved in your fear. The blanket, the teddy bear, the husband, the wife, the mother, the father, the job that you accept with little question, whatever the pain, whatever the inadequacy of the situation, because it's safer. Safety last. And we want to put this as strongly as we can. There is nothing to be afraid of. There is literally, without exception, nothing for you to be afraid of. There is not a decision that you could make about yourself that will not enhance your life when you act from your intuition. And the point is, you say, how do I know it's my intuition? Do it. if it isn't your intuition, if it isn't the voice of your higher self, you're not going to be betrayed. You haven't come all this distance in your faith, through your pain, to finally get up the courage to make a choice, courageous, brave, bold, and have it turn out to be a disaster. The reality is difficult, but it's not cruel. You haven't gone through fear after fear to finally have it proved to you that your fears were right. And you can't trust your decisions. And you're not strong. And you need more and more help. Break through it. There isn't a one of you who right now in your life does not have a situation in a relationship, in a job, in some aspect of your life that couldn't be greatly improved by the flash of a sword that breaks through the strings of dependency and fear that hold you. This is not grandiose thinking. You are all heroes of your adventure. And when you act with the courage, the faith of the hero, you know you'll always win out. The greatest miracle of all is the fact that you can now look within yourself and find that your expectations haven't come true. You can't look within yourself and find a saint or an angel. Lightning hasn't struck, suddenly washing away all that is within you that you have feared or despised. No. The miracle is that you can look within yourself and love what you find. It was never intended that you be an angel or a saint. It was intended that you be a human being. And now, when you want to play, you can play with a light heart. Because the gods play. Where do you think the idea of play came from? You think God doesn't play? Look at the platypus. And when you get angry, get angry. Don't stuff it down until it rots and poisons your whole system. And when you're sad, cry. And when you're wrong, ask forgiveness. You can behave naturally. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not frozen in space and time, unchanging. You'll keep growing. You'll keep changing. You'll keep letting go of non-essentials. You'll keep opening yourself up to the richness that the life holds within itself. Doesn't matter. There's time for everything. And that phrase that you have heard and never quite understood is true. You're already perfect. You're perfect right now. Not perfect in your imperfection, perfect in your perfection. You're a human being. And those aren't dark shadows within yourself. Things from which you must turn your face, blush in shame, hide from the world. You know, as you find yourselves opening up more and more to friends, comrades on the path, letting down all of the curtains of protection that you've erected around yourself for fear that someone will look in and see the real you and be disgusted and leave you alone, abandoned. You'll find as you open up more and more that everybody else is just as horrible as you are. Which is to say, not horrible at all, but full of the richness of human experience. Not little Sunday school morality plays, but the richness of all possibilities. And what you can trust is that you are healed. You are forgiven. You will do no harm. You will create no pain. You will not betray, because you are filled with love. You can look in the mirror and smile and say, I love you. And not be embarrassed. And not be saying, I love you, but. The sweetness isn't sugar. The sweetness is the richness, the texture of your life, your personality, your being, your likes, your dislikes. Heaven isn't people going around playing on harps with wings on gold streets. It is boring, and you're not boring. And certainly, still, there's hangover, and you still say, oh, I want to believe that. I want to believe I'm okay. But how? You're going to prove it to yourself, so relax. Quit wringing your hands and furrowing your brow and saying, what can I do? How can I prove it? You are proving it. Live. Today. Tomorrow. Breathe in and out. And those old memories and those old ghosts are going to fade into the past where they belong. You are the miracle in your life. And from that miraculous being will flow all of the joy, all of the reward, all of the love that you have ever desired. Just take a look at yourself. Step back from your life. Do you interact differently now with your friends, with your children, with your husband, with your wife? Do you understand them better and yourself better? Have you seen evidence again and again that you're willing to do anything, however scary it is, in order to grow? I know that every one of you can say yes. You just need to be reminded that you're not who you thought you were. You are beginning the most glorious time in this or any other life that you have experienced. Recreating your reality, finding your true nature, expanding till the light cancels out every shadow in your life. Does it mean there won't be ups and downs and bumps along the road? Of course there will be. That's the texture of life. What it means is that you're not going to be paralyzed with fear of what might happen next. Or, oh God, the roof is going to fall in. The sky is falling. The challenges will come, but they'll be fun. A chance for you to expand more. You are going to love yourself with all of your heart in delight to find that all the lies were lies. that you are brave, that you can turn away from a situation that brings you pain and limitation and say, no, thank you, not anymore. And know that the new reality that will manifest itself in your life will be fully satisfying. That there is no loss, that nothing will be taken away from you, that every step is a step up into the light. Test yourself. As the moment moves, when a challenge comes and a decision is to be made, make it. Don't stew about it. As they can, based upon their life. And so you've got, at best, a 50-50 chance of there being right about your life. Trust yourself. And don't put it in the mind, begging for clarity so you don't have to take a chance. Here's your choice. What do you want to do? Well, I think I'll do this. What? So lightly make a decision that could shake my reality? Yes. Yes. That's trust in yourself. Trust in your path. Trust in God. Trust in the universe. To know that the wisest, deepest, most important decision of your life can be made just like that. Yeah, I guess I'll do this. Lighten up, folks. Life isn't as difficult as you make it out to be. With courage, with faith, with a spirit of adventure, with a smile, take a chance. Now we're going to take a break, and we'll come back in a few minutes for questions.
Plautus, could you comment on the recent drop in the stock market, and if that really correlates? A couple months ago you mentioned, sort of something that would change the economic picture as we now know it. And if that's kind of the end of that, or the same thing, or if you envision that there will be more of a crash.
Well, it's not by any means the end of it. The economy is, as we said, the world economy is a very rickety structure, not reflecting reality at all, but increasingly a kind of wishful fantasy. Well, in the time that we are in now, that is going to mean a change of all things, reflecting inner change as it grows, is going to mean the dismantling of this rickety structure and its replacement by a economic process that is more respondent to human needs. So therefore, the destruction will take place, so the new construction will have the space to grow. We've been talking about the stock market crash as being a bellwether, an indication of things to come, a stimulant, a trigger. And what it has proved, you see, it doesn't by itself bring down the economy in ruins, but it is a puncturing of the balloon. It is the beginning of a journey toward realism in economic affairs. And so the belief in the structure is badly shaken by the appearance of this weak link. Now, the market itself is already rebounding, and we've said it's going to rebound, but it's not solid. You see, it's not based on any real change. We would expect the market to appear to be stronger over the next couple of months, but then to decline again. However, we would say your focus shouldn't be on the stock market. Well, if you have money in the market, you might want to consider what to do with that. But rather the next step in this chain of circumstances having to do with interest rates, with consumer confidence, and a gradual draining away of the false confidence that has provided the outward appearance of a boom without anything behind it to back such an expansionist time. Yes.
You mentioned in your lecture that none of us would probably become multimillionaires. Is it also true that none of us need to suffer from lack of resources anymore either?
You don't need to suffer anymore, period. Financial resources are going to be under considerable shifting and straining over the next few years. There are going to be ups and downs for everybody. The point here is, as we said, you have nothing to fear. That you will not be in a situation that is not of your choosing. And as you become more and more aware of your true needs, the needs of your own process in this life, as you integrate more and more with the higher aspect of your being, you may find that you are making choices in your life independent of whether they are particularly financially rewarding. But as we say, you're not going to be put in a position of want involuntarily. And that's an important consideration. It's not we're not cavilling, but we're saying that there will be, for some of you, times when you will make choices that are in your true best interests, but your focus will be less upon economics. Much of that focus is a reflection of your fear and your insecurity and your belief that material goods and wealth will protect you. Well, that's a chimera, and you will see through such illusions more and more clearly as time goes on. But again, we repeat, you have nothing to worry about.
Are we waiting for soul or guidance from ourselves to kind of lead us in our next step?
Yes, but there is no need to wait. You see, the only reason you're waiting is you want to be, the ego, the mind, wants to be surer before it acts. In fact, there is no need to wait. You can begin trusting that you are indeed getting that guidance. It's not going to be stone tablets, this time.
I see. Thank you. Yes, Plautus, you talked about the physical changes which are to come in the next 15 plus years, starvation probably being a part of it for many of us. Are there things that we should be doing individually to prepare for this?
All right, we're going to step carefully here because we are not going to recommend hoarding and burying canned food in the backyard. What is that but an action of fear? Does it mean that you should stagger on willy-nilly into the future with no preparation? No, it's not that either. It is that the whole issue here is trust of the self. You know at your deepest and highest level what you need and what you require. Yes, there's going to be increased evidence of famine as well as the other horsemen as the fear entities that have so long controlled humanity engage in their final battle with the forces of reality. The love that is sure to win out. But in the thrashing of the dinosaur, yes, there will be a lot of problems and difficulties. We would say to each of you that you will receive best by giving most. and that you are indeed not only your brother's keeper, you are your brother, and you are all one, and what you give to another, you give to yourself. There is no question that casting your bread upon the water does return it to you tenfold. And here you are living in a time on a planet in crisis where there are great needs. Well, just because Plautus says, yes, there's going to be famine, and that is a needful part of this transformation, doesn't mean you say, oh, well, there's going to be famine, so I don't have to worry about that or even look at it. Whatever the circumstances are, you are called upon by your own higher natures to give in love, to share, to recognize the commonality of all human beings. And so wherever your spirit moves you to give and to share in a process of education and financial relief, whatever your talents and abilities are, we say, yes, act, give, share.
Could you comment on the accident, so to speak, with Jessica McClure in Texas 2 weeks ago?
The child buried in the earth, a great focus of attention throughout this nation, a real relief for many, many people, because in a time when there seem to be such powerful anonymous forces directing human fate, at a time when disasters on a wide scale seem to lurk around every corner, where war is threatened in the Mideast, where the economic structure is tottering, a situation like this, the focus upon this irrepressible human spirit in the form of a tiny and helpless child is a symbol of hope, of oneness, a focus of love that is a confirmation of a humanity that is seen best intimately. And when you see strangers working together as one, selflessly, in the effort to rescue innocence, then you are seeing the story of the emergent new reality. Yes.
Plautus, can you comment on the likely outcome of the Gorbachev visit to Washington and the negotiations?
Yes. There is much, much more here than immediately meets the eye. Here we have the appearance of a de-escalation of the tower of fear that has been what you have called the Cold War. It is not to say that there is not hope and a dawning of light. This occasion is going to be the focus of much hope, much skepticism, and much opposition. You're going to see in the aftermath of this event that is part of a series of events an increased polarization of those who are committed to the sustaining of fear, those who are committed to old and frozen views of humanity, and those who are timidly, cautiously stepping into the light, taking risks on behalf of freedom and peace. There is going to be evidence coming from this event to support the views of both sides. The event will be celebrated but briefly. It is not yet time for a true healing. It is a time for mixed signals. The leader of your country is not of this time. Events are now quite beyond his comprehension. He cannot see what is developing. As this Christ energy of transformation increases its effect upon humanity, sustaining and uplifting those who greet it with joy, and causing terror among those married to fear, you will find that his ability to lead decreases rapidly. Just as you find yourself from time to time confused in the changing of patterns in your life, so is that confusion magnified by those who haven't the slightest idea what's going on. On the other side of this matter, Mr. Gorbachev, here is one marked by fate, whose role we cannot yet completely reveal, whose advent has been foretold, whose effect upon the future is profound. The tide has shifted. We would say to each of you, read between the lines, open your heart, your psychic spiritual sensitivity and awareness when you read, when you see on television these men in this context. You will be more truly informed of the importance of this matter than those who hear only the words and see only the outer shell. By the middle of next year, what this event means will be much clearer. Yes.
About Gorbachev. Is he kind of a good guy or is he a bad guy?
Yes.
He's a good guy.
Next.
Plautus, you mentioned in your lecture that Christ was on earth and demonstrated these miracles, that we should be like him. There's this dude over in India, Sai Baba, that's doing miracles, supposedly. Do you have any comment on that?
Yes. You are not yet up to turning wine into water or vice versa. You're not up yet to raising the dead. You are beginning to realize your Christliness, your godhood. you are moving into a time where you will more and more manifest what would have been considered to be magic or miracles. You are now capable of doing so in terms of physical, emotional healing with yourself and sharing that healing with others. It will become clearer and as time goes by. There are those on earth, avatars, those who are guides in human form. There are also those whose power stems not from the light, and there are those who are out-and-out charlatans. We have said to you all, don't follow leaders. You need to recognize that each of you is a leader, that each of you has a path separate and distinct from your brothers and your sisters, that you are in charge of your life, that you share with others, but you do not follow others. A test of those who show these powers has to do with what they ask of you. If they want you to follow them and to be like them and to shower them with Rolls Royces, then we would say to you, be warned. If it is a gift outright, given in love, then you can make the assumption that love is its source. By their fruits you shall know them. Yes?
Plautus, you said that we will not make a decision that will bring us pain, but on the other hand, you said that we should be cautious. So how do you know?
Should be cautious?
That we should not be cautious.
Yes. That is the faith, you see. It doesn't mean that you couldn't arbitrarily say, I'm going to do this, knowing it would bring you pain. What we are saying is trust that your own higher self, your own higher nature, your own spirit is the voice of intuition, that when you act in harmony with that voice, quickly responding, that you can trust that your response will not bring you a negative outcome. Now, in this period of time, there will be pain that you feel from time to time, but it will be the pain of revealing your true nature and getting rid of those ghosts from the past that still cling. But the test of your faith is not that you wait for proof, but that you act boldly. And what we are saying is that if you act boldly, in harmony with your nature as it is revealed to you, you cannot fail, and you will not bring bad results. When you're cautious, it means you're thinking, the best way to act on your intuition is to act on the spur of the moment, the first flash, because everything after that is going to be backing and filling. It's going to be saying, well, yes, wait a minute, though, that's a little rash. I'm going to do that, but just to be on the safe side, maybe I'll just shift. Well, maybe I really shouldn't do it at all because this isn't really the best possible time, but I'll bet you that by next summer would be a good time to do that if I still feel like it then. Whatever it was, I forget now what it was. So you can subvert the ego mind's tendency to protect you from growth by acting quickly and boldly. Yes.
Well, if we do stumble and get away from our higher selves for a little bit and do make a wrong turn in the road, will our higher selves, when we come rejoin, kind of salvage the situation so it still doesn't come out bad?
This is a misunderstanding here. You're never going to leave your path. The higher self is never going to sit back and say, I'll just wait until you come back. There are no mistakes and there are no errors. Every choice that you make is going to be a choice in your own higher interests. And if that choice involves the exploration of a fear that still clings to you, don't regret it or feel that it has been straying from the path. It is a necessary exploration so that you can look eyeball to eyeball into your fear and finally release it. So there is no straying from the path. The higher self doesn't need to pull your chestnuts out of the fire. By making your choice, and you see, all you have to know is that your intent is to grow. Your intent is to become whole. You know, on the conscious level, that's really all you're asked to know at this point. You can go ahead and be bold and make choices because you know what you intend. And it will be responded to appropriately, generally not in the way expected, because your expectations are based on such little information as to what is truly needed to get from point A to point B. So don't worry about making any kind of choice, and it's important when you make a choice and you think, oh dear, this is the old me. What have I done? Have I not grown at all? Am I sinking back into the muck and the mire? Don't fear that. Often the message is, here, this aspect of yourself that you have disdained and that you have sought to turn away from and that you have been ashamed of is you also. Love yourself here also. And sometimes the choice means that what looks like a mistake is a change of pattern, a change of direction that will lead you to the next appropriate step. But maybe it'll lead you down through the valley of the shadow of fear for a dip. But you don't have to worry about the outcome because you've already made that decision. Yes?
Healthcare and medicine, as we know it in the Western world, civilization here is under a lot of turmoil and change right now. What do you see in the future, particularly when you see that medicine is ready to begin to integrate spiritual and psychic healing into its structured practice?
Yes, well, that's really what you are seeing taking place. This is a transitional time, and as such can be confusing. But stand back from it a moment and look at what is taking place in Western medicine. Other views of healing are finally being heard and integrated into the general practice, where now acupuncture, for example, is becoming more and more widely accepted. There are surgeons now that will have Reiki healers, hands-on healers standing by to help in the recovery process and to slow blood loss and so forth. There's a gradual crack in the door that's opening wider and wider. Whole theories of medicine aren't going to be thrown out. Theories of healing aren't going to be thrown out. What is gold in them will be integrated, and what is dross will fall away. Now, we emphasize, because it's important for you to realize that each of you has healing power, and that you can practice very effectively preventive healing within yourselves, and certainly at this level, minor healing of pre-existing conditions or of relatively minor conditions, headaches, stomach aches, and so forth. You can be very effective on yourself and with others in that area now. Major healing is also not beyond you, but it requires patience and it requires time, because you are and will be working in a very organic manner in altering pre-existing circumstances, creating an environment where healing can take place. But in addition to all of the abilities that you have yourself that you are now just beginning to tap, we do not say, well, you can heal yourself so you don't have to ever see anyone else. That this is a community that is aborning, and you will find yourself more and more involved in healing, and there will be many techniques available to you. Yes.
My question is related to that. It has to do with the insurance industry in relation to the Human Hearts and Medical Association.
Yes. Well, the insurance industries, of course, are among the most conservative of human institutions. They will be among the last to recognize new forms of healing in general. There will be individual, more far-sighted insurance companies that will begin more and more to minister to alternative forms of healing and to provide their coverage in that area. But the entire insurance industry, well, if ever an industry was built on fear, it is that one. And fear and distrust. So there's going to be a very much of an evolution, if not a revolution, in that. And you can see, if you look at it, that it's grown top-heavy with profits, and that it has grown less and less useful because of the restrictions and eliminations. You know, they'll insure you for anything as long as it's nothing you're likely to get, as long as it's nothing you've had before. So they're narrowing that, and of course the human beings in their increasing panic are becoming more litigious, and so premiums rise also because everyone is suing everyone else, looking please to find somebody to blame for whatever disaster may have occurred in their lives. This whole fear structure that is the basis of human civilization up until now is crumbling and being reformed. And certainly the insurance business is going to be a part of that. We would say that this so-called New Age consciousness is growing so rapidly now that probably by a year from now or so, you're going to find more and more insurance companies receptive to covering alternative healing. Yes.
Plautus, does it appear that Gorbachev will survive the next 2 or 3 years of criticism within his own party, his own ranks?
Yes, it's very likely because his efforts are giving results. Well, just as in this country, there's an entrenched power elite in that country that is highly dependent upon the military, upon defense systems and weaponry. It has a great investment in continued instability and mutual fear. We feel that it is likely, what we're going to say about him is that either he is going to physically survive in his role, or the alternative to the vision that we see is that his impact is going to be so powerful that it will outlive him and provide the direction. So one way or another, the influence is going to be a continuing influence.
You said once that Reagan will not finish his term. Do you still feel that?
Yes.
Is that due to illness or personal matters?
Well, as we've said before, it's a combination of health and political circumstances. He is mentally losing ground. There's evidence of hardening of the arteries in the brain that is increasing rapidly because of he really cannot tolerate his loss of power and influence. One more question.
Is there any fundamental hopeful field might represent best for humanity?
There is a very good reason why the array of presidential candidates on both sides of the aisle are such midgets. Having to do with events that are forming now, relating to international as well as internal political thing. We have to be very vague about this now because it's too soon to go into it in depth. There is one individual who may provide a focus of hope, but that individual, if he is to be a factor in this coming election, that will materialize shortly after the beginning of the new year. He's not at present a part of the official candidates. So now we're going to draw this evening's reading to a close, and we thank you all for your attention and bid you Godspeed as your journeys continue to open before you.